Today in Speedy's Garage, we're going to turn this into this. And to make that happen, we're going to be using Plasti Dip. It's cheap and effective, and I was starting to feel left out not having one of these videos on my channel. There's a couple of reasons I'm doing this. The 17-inch weld wheels that I ran on Project Orange Crush, the front runners would not fit on Project Go Man Go due to the 6-piston Hellcat brakes. And to go along with the 17x10 weld wheels with the Hoosier Slick setup for the rear, I picked up these Dark Star 18x5s and some Hoosier 4.5x28x18s to go on the front. You can run some slicks in the rear with the radial tire in the front, but can get a little weird on the big end of the track with a little bit of unsettledness in the car, kind of have a floaty feeling. At 125, 130 miles an hour, that's not good. So I want to go with these to avoid that problem, and they'll shave a little bit of weight and shave some time as a result. There's the part number information, 92-850445. It's an 18x5, as I said, minus 20 offset, 5x115 bolt pattern, and a 78mm hub bore. The welds that I've been running are polished aluminum, and I went with a gloss black on these. I just honestly got tired of polishing the polished aluminum on the weld, so I'm going to Plasti Dip those, and I'll show you that later. The kit comes with some hub-centric rings. These are shank lugs, which means they're a little bit longer, as you can see. They come with a washer, basically, that goes on shank like that before it goes on the wheel. And it came with the valve stems and the socket, which happens to be 7/8. One of the things I love about the Challenger is there's plenty of room in the trunk. So here the tires are mounted up to the Race Star wheels. Everything came out great. They look good. Didn't require a whole lot of weight to balance them. The finish is very shiny, so it should be easy to keep clean, which is what I wanted. And I think they'll look great on the car. One thing Micah from OST gave me a heads up on was to be sure that when the wheels were balanced, that the weights went on this rib closest to the spoke on the inside of the wheel. And that's to ensure you don't get any contact with the brake caliper, because that would be no bueno. Inquiring minds want to know, so I dropped these on the scale to see how much they weigh, and this tire and wheel combo came in at 38 pounds a piece. Compare that to the factory Brass Monkey wheel with the Pirelli all-season tire, which was 61.5 pounds, and you can see I'm saving 47 pounds off the front of Go Man Go when I run this setup at the track. I went ahead and threw the weld 17x10 with Hoosier 28x10 racing slick on the scale as well, and those came in at 42 pounds each. So all told, when I run the front and rear setup at the track, I'm saving 86 pounds off of Go Man Go, and that's substantial. And a quick test fit shows it's close. You can see there how close the wheel weights are to the caliper, but everything does fit and clear, and the wheel can spin freely. So they're good to go. And I'm hoping hitting them with a top coat of this Plasti Dip glossifier will make the sheen or the shine match pretty closely, so fingers crossed. First thing you want to do is make sure you've got a very clean wheel, and this will be the same if it was on the vehicle or off. I highly recommend you take the extra time to remove the wheel from the vehicle if you're actually doing regular car tires and not a race wheel like I am. I've seen some people stuff plastic bags behind the part of the wheel they're going to Plasti Dip to protect the rotor and the brake caliper, but in my opinion you're kind of not doing a complete job, because you want to do the back side of the wheel as well, make it color uniform and all of that. After the wheel is clean, which these already are, always keep the race wheels clean anyway, use some wax and grease remover. I really like the stuff from Duplicolor. You can put it on a lint-free rag and do a really thorough job wiping down the wheel, and do it in sections so that you can keep track and not miss any spots. So I'm going to start with the ring on the outside of the lip, then I'm going to move to the ring on the inside of the lip, and then I'm going to do the outside of the spokes, and then the inside of the spokes. And I'm going to do front and back. So I'm just going to wipe it down, and I'm actually going to do this twice to make sure I don't miss anything. I'm going to go over the wheel 2 times with the wax and grease remover. Now moving on to the back side, and I'll give you a quick tip. When you're using the wax and grease remover, don't lay the rag over the opening and dunk the rag. You're going to take contaminants off your rag and contaminate your wax and grease remover. Instead, just pour it on the rag. Once the wax and grease remover flashes away, I'm going to wipe it down one last time with a microfiber towel using the short nap side. Next, tape off any areas you don't want covered by the Plasti Dip, and in my case it's going to be the valve stem and the rear hub face. I didn't want this to have Plasti Dip on it because this is the point where it makes contact with the actual hub of the car. And then I'm going to use an X-Acto knife just to trim, and the sharper the better, just to trim around this area. And there's how it looks all trimmed out. Very easy with a sharp knife. Now I've read that if you soak the Plasti Dip cans in hot water, it makes the spray come out in a finer mist, giving you a smoother finish. I've never used Plasti Dip on big products like wheels, or big objects I guess I should say. I've used it on some small underhood trim pieces and they came out pretty good, but on the wheels being such a large and kind of in your face item, I want to make sure I do everything I can to give the best possible finish. So I'm going to try soaking them in hot water and see if that makes any difference. I considered also trying to tape off this inner part of the hub bore here, but I was afraid it would get messy with tape, and I figured it would be easier just to go ahead and Plasti Dip that area, and then if it looked like it was going to be an issue sliding the wheel on and off the car, in other words it started catching and peeling off the Plasti Dip, I could always just score it with a razor blade and then peel that section off nice and clean after it was sprayed. And one last thing I did is I put a little tire dressing on a rag, and I'm just going to wipe it, just a very light coat around the edge to make the Plasti Dip a little bit easier to peel off the tire when we're done. Be careful not to get any on the rim though. And after shaking the Plasti Dip for about a minute after the ball starts to rattle, you want to get in an area that's out of direct sunlight and preferably not windy. It's a little breezy today, so I'm going to have to kind of work around the wind, but you also have to be in a well ventilated area, so always do this outside. And then just do multiple light coats. And there's what the first light coat's looking like so far. And I started on the back side of the wheel so that I could adjust and learn how the product was going to flow in the current weather conditions before I started on the front. Product says it needs 30 minutes minimum between coats, so I'm going to set a timer for 35 minutes and we'll see you then. And to keep the nozzle from clogging up while we're waiting, flip the can upside down, give it a 5-second spray. It should be good to go. Okay, I'm back after giving it some drying time, and you'll notice this first coat, it was just a light tack coat. It wasn't full wet like the rest of them will be. You can kind of still see the metal shining through, and that's because we were setting up a foundation for the heavier wet coats to stick, and it'll help prevent runs. It's just like spray paint. Same principle applies. So now we're going to get on that second wet coat and start to make something of these wheels. Okay, so I had a little bit of a boo-boo on one of the wheels. I think I got it a little heavy in this area, and it actually caused some outgassing, and I had a few bubbles show up, and I was afraid I was going to have to redo the wheel. But I've found that if you take a little bit of brake cleaner and put it in a cup, and if you spray it in here, if it's a spray kind, be careful of your eyes when you're spraying it. But then I just put on a latex glove, or I'm sorry, a nitrile glove, nitrile that's chemical resistant. I'm just dipping my finger in the brake cleaner, and I'm rubbing it on the Plasti Dip to let it soften and let those bubbles flow out. I'm hoping that'll fix it. Xylene would probably work much better for this, but this is the brake cleaner I used. And now that I've got the bubbles cleaned up, I'm just going to apply an additional coat of Plasti Dip over the whole wheel. So this is where we ended up after 4 coats of Plasti Dip. And you're doing 2 things. You're obviously changing the color of the wheel or the object you're painting, but you also want to spray it on thick enough so that it's easy to remove at a later date. If you get it just right, you'll be able to just take your fingernail or something and get an edge going, and then peel all of that off in one big sheet, almost like a vinyl decal. I am not a Plasti Dip expert, so I wanted to shoot this video to kind of show how somebody who's pretty new to the product actually was able to do with it. And these came out really nice. The trick I found that made for a good finish was about a 50% overlap, and you wanted a nice wet finish after that first tack coat, but you don't want to get it on too heavy or it would have a tendency to outgas and bubble. Now if you're happy with the finish of just the Plasti Dip, you're done. However, as I showed you, I need mine to be shinier to match those other wheels, so I'm going to put the glossifier on now. And my goal is going to be to get this on nice and smooth in 1 or 2 coats tops. And I soaked the cans in the hot water. Again, I don't know if it matters, but I figure it couldn't hurt. And I'm only doing the glossifier on the front side of the wheel. I don't need it on the back. And you shake it and apply it just like the Plasti Dip. Now, as you saw, I did not apply any tape to the tire to protect it from overspray. That's because where I put that tire shine, get a spot kind of started. Be careful with your wheel. You don't want to, if it looks like it's getting into the wheel, stop. You don't want it to start coming off the wheel, but here's how easy it'll come off the tire. And you can see right where that tire shine was. I maybe should have come up a little bit farther with the tire shine. So take that in mind when you're doing yours. You want this to be a little easier, because I'm going to have to scrub the edge to get the rest of it off, but there you go. You can see why having it thicker is better. Comes off like a decal, like a vinyl decal almost. And for the edge, where I didn't quite get enough tire shine on it, I'm just going to use a brush it away. So tip, put the tire shine all the way out to the edge to avoid having to do a little bit extra work. And for areas that act like they want to be particularly stubborn, you can use some Goo Gone and an old beat up microfiber towel to get it off. Just be careful not to get any of this on the wheel, because it will remove Plasti Dip. And when you're removing your taped areas, make sure you pull away from the wheel towards the center, or otherwise you could accidentally start removing the Plasti Dip, which you don't want to do, obviously. So work from the edge to the center. And for the valve stem, I'm going to use an X-Acto knife and cut the tape. make it easier to remove. I'm also just going to go around the edge here to make sure it's separated from the valve stem base. You don't want to peel this tape and cause the Plasti Dip to start to come off. Be really careful here not to nick your wheel. There we go. So here's the completed project. For about $24 investment, it was definitely worth the effort. However, I really preferred the flat black look of just the Plasti Dip. The glossifier does make it shinier, but it's not a real high gloss shine like you would expect from like a clear coat product. The Plasti Dip as well as the glossifier also have just a little bit of a texture to them. I don't know if you can see it on film, but it's just a hint of a texture. So they're not completely flat like paint will be. I think that's a limitation of the spray nozzle on the aerosol cans. You might get better results if you mix it and put it in a compressed air paint spray gun. So how did we do? The mission was to match this front runner with the Plasti Dip and the glossifier. And I'd say it's pretty close. Again, it was 24 bucks in product. It was a little time consuming. It took me most of the afternoon because you have to spray the product and then wait 30 minutes and then do another coat. So it does take some time. However, for a setup at the drag strip, this is just about as close as I can get. The only other option I would have had would have been to Plasti Dip the Raystar front runners the flat black. And I could have done that, but they're already black. I didn't want to spend time painting them since they were brand new. So I just did the welds to match. All in all, I think it came out great. Now, I'm sure you're as anxious as I am to see how this looks on Go Man Go, but we're just going to have to wait until our first track outing in the next couple of weeks. And when I'm at the track, I'm there for maximum performance. I'm not there trying to set some kind of record on street tires fighting a 600 horsepower car down the track. These are what I used on Project Orange Crush with great success, and I would expect the same on Go Man Go. And for those that are curious, it took me 4 cans of Plasti Dip to do 2 17 by 10 wheels. And I did do the front and the back as I showed. If you only do the front, you're not going to need near as much. Probably 2 cans will do just the front of the wheels. I used about 3/4 of a can of glossifier. It's a little bit thinner than Plasti Dip. It's almost like it's the chemical that creates Plasti Dip without any pigment in it. It's kind of how it seemed to me. So it had a tendency to want to run, so be careful there. But just about 3/4 of a can to do the front of both of these wheels. If you want to see some more project work and how to, be sure to visit my website, www.speedysgarage.net, and don't forget to hit subscribe in the bottom right corner.